What we're going to talk about today, we've got a 2-day virtual retreat. Like I said, I'm going to open up a lot of the floor for workshopping. So what we're going to talk about today is your profitable pre-event decisions, how that really looks for a summit specifically, like what are the nuances and what are the difference there, and then how to forex your attendees without ads. I love what we're going to talk about today. This is, the summit play has been the most attendees I've ever got in a single event, the most visibility, the most credibility. So I want to show you guys how to really accelerate your growth, your audience growth, your influence, your authority, all of these incredible things. And then tomorrow, we're going to talk a little bit more about how to change lives and swing open wallets. What do we do? What's the structure? How do we actually put this all together? And then selling out your offers post event. So a lot of the sequence we'll go through is very similar to the structure of the six-figure speaker system: decide, fill up, show up, sell out. So really, these are the 4 steps we're going to go through these 2 days. And I'm just going to tell you how it relates to the summit specifically, because we've got a whole program on six-figure speaker and the actual system. So I want to start out with the context of this, and this can relate to your summit, or this can relate to an event. How many of you, maybe you want to do some kind of in-person events? I know Rox got that on her radar in 2024. Maybe you want to do a retreat, you want to do some kind of in-person thing eventually. So I want to share this piece with you right now. And when I pulled up the meaning of signature, when we talk about your signature summit or your signature event, or, we'll talk about how this relates to your signature offer. I really love this definition, because the way that this specific definition landed for me is a genuine signature is the personal mark of an individual written by that specific individual. So I invite you to anchor into that, the personal mark that you're leaving on the industry, the personal mark that you want to make in your brand, in your reputation. And this second piece too really relates to a lot of what we're going to talk about with the guest speakers. It normally serves to indicate his or her acceptance of some set of circumstances, or to be the symbol with such associated with such an agreement. So the way I see this, it's 2 pieces. It's really the mark that we're leaving, the mark that we're making, the perception that we're building in the industry of who we are as a brand, as a speaker, as a thought leader. That's the first piece. But then also, what standards do we have? Where do we actually set that standard as to where we want to be in the industry? And then what partnerships are we going to allow in because of that? So I really like that, because I'm going to talk to you also a little bit about an example of that in just a minute when it comes to partnerships, and really how to differentiate between a good partnership and a bad partnership. And I'm even going to give you an example when I was a bad partner for somebody else, so that you can kind of see how this looks in real life. So why a summit? This summit is just an incredible opportunity to build community, to build authority, to build influence. And when you are the host of a summit, you are positioning yourself in the industry as the thought leader on your topic. So this could be a summit, it could be any kind of event, any kind of really engagement where you are facilitating and you're bringing in guest speakers. And really what we're doing too is the biggest thing we'll talk about very, very briefly, but we're leveraging other people's credibility, authority, audiences. So the way that we're going to be able to grow exponentially through a summit is so much faster than when we would on our own. So what's in it for the speakers? Sometimes people come to me and I've had people say, do I pay my speakers? What's in it for the speakers? People genuinely love to speak because they're getting access to your community, your audience, and really you're giving them a platform to share their expertise. So if we're going through this process and you guys ever get a question from somebody, you may or may not get a question about this, but sometimes people will say, well, what's the compensation for speakers? Now, at this point in your career, you're likely not compensating speakers. If you do a JV, that's a different type of agreement, but what's in it for the speakers is exposure. So you can answer that with one question. If somebody's like, hey, what's the compensation for the speakers? You could say there's no budget right now. the exposure is the value. And I mean, my first speaking event, I paid to fly to Florida. I paid for my hotel. You know, I got invited on the stage, but to be exposed to that audience and then to have the really the reputation and the perception of me as a speaker with the photos, with the videos, with being on the website, all of that. So if you think I paid to speak at the event, I wasn't paid. In the long-term ROI, it paid me back 10, 20, 100-fold. You know, I can't even measure that. So just a quick tidbit, if you guys ever get a question from your guest speakers of like, is there a budget? What's in it for me? So it's exposure. You could say that with one word. Now, this is a really big thing too, and I want to just talk about this for 1 second because sometimes when we start getting into a collaborative mode, it can be really easy to, in the book, if you guys are listening, I highly recommend 10x is easier than 2x, and they talk about this really, really quickly. It's called the gap and the gain, and it's this mindset perspective of the gap is when you are in this place when you're comparing yourself to either the horizon, right? The constantly moving horizon. I want this milestone, I'm not there yet. Other people, you're in comparison mode. And the gain is when you're comparing yourself to previous versions of yourself, and it's more of an abundance mindset. So I bring this up because sometimes when we start to partner with other people, it can be easy to start falling into the gap where you're like, this person's further along than me, this person's making more money, this person's this person's that, and it can be easy to really fall into that. But I'm going to invite you into the gain and really into this context as we enter the summit and any kind of guest speaker play, because collaboration happens at the top and competition happens at the bottom. Now, the way that this really can be explained is that the reason competition happens at the bottom is because there is this scarcity mindset, lack of resources, maybe lack of money, lack of confidence. There's a lack of something where people feel like they need to compete. So inside of the Wealthy Woman movement, inside of the Industry Icon Mastermind, I'm going to invite you guys into the top because you're already here because you have an extraordinary skill set. You have a specialized zone of genius. And what you're doing right now is you're learning a very specialized, nuanced skill set that not a lot of people have and that not a lot of people pursue. So right now, even just in this training, you guys have an asset learning how to do events and host events and sell from stage that not many people have. So I want to really invite you into that context of you're already at the top. You already have a skill set, you already have a zone of genius, and you have a very specialized knowledge that not many people have. So that is one of the reasons why you may hear this, but I'm going to invite you to play at the top. And a lot of the energy that we're going to be talking about today is at the top. So we talked about this at the event, but really quick reminder, every time you have a partnership inside of an event, a guest speaker, a podcast, an interview, what you're doing is you're making relationships with people who have bigger spheres of influence. I encourage you guys to work your way up to larger spheres of influence instead of down. A lot of people, when they start doing partnerships, they start partnering with people who maybe are less advanced or they're not as far along because it makes them feel comfortable and it makes them feel confident in who they are. But I'm going to invite you guys to go the opposite route and really, as we anchor into that place of knowing you are incredible, you're an extraordinary genius, and you have a specialized skill set, you're going to add value to people who are further along than you. So every time we make one of these partnerships, whether it's a podcast interview or a virtual event or a summit or something like that, you're going to start moving further and further out. So your sphere of influence and your perception in the marketplace is going to grow more quickly, which is going to create faster trust with your audience, which is going to encourage people to feel more comfortable to buy from you more quickly because they see you as the authority. So relationships, hands down, are the fastest way to grow. We understand there's a long-term and a short-term context to everything. right? Long-term energy. It's going to take us a long time to grow an audience on social media, in our business. It's going to take us a long time sometimes to, build out systems and do different things. That stuff takes time. However, with a relationship, in a single instant, when somebody says yes, you're immediately plugging into everything that they've built. So, for example, I'm going to show you guys an example when we talk about good relationships versus bad, or good partnerships versus bad partnerships. But for example, you can plug into somebody who has an event space, a retreat space, a property that maybe they've worked their whole life to buy this property or rent this property, or build something in this establishment where you can partner with them in a second and instantly plug into things and resources that they've built over a lifetime. Similarly to networks, audiences, different things like that. So this piece right here, this is where I've seen the fastest growth, and I'm going to encourage you guys to continue to focus on the long-term context of relationship building while you're building your own brand, and know that while you're doing that, that's going to create short-term, quick leaps in terms of what you have access to: people, community, assets, resources. So decide, we're going to talk about this when we do the workshop, but essentially the only thing that's different in terms of the summit or a guest speaker versus the six-figure speaker system is, who do you want to speak and how does that relate to what you're selling, the message, and everything that you're doing inside of the event. So we'll talk about this when we do the workshop a little bit more. So when we talk about packaging a summit specifically, and I'm going to pull up an example of this in just a second, there's two main ways that you can do this. You can have a summit and just call it a summit, and it is what it is, and it's expert sessions. There's going to be a common theme, a common goal. Everybody's in alignment. You can also do this in regards to a challenge, and I'll pull this up in just a second. So Russell Brunson, he does like your first funnel challenge, and basically it's very similar to a summit style where he has all of his students, guest speakers, partners, JVs coming and speaking and contributing to the challenge to help fill it. However, the context is, over the 5 days, we're going to launch your first funnel. So if we did a summit that was, okay, we're going to launch your business or launch your funnel or launch this, we could 100% get a bunch of guest speakers to talk about it, and it would be super valuable. The only difference in a challenge is every day you're likely going to have some kind of homework, some kind of takeaway, something for them to execute on that's going to move them in that direction. So I have been experimenting with this one as of lately, where I'm combining the summit and the challenge. So when people invest their time inside the room, it's bringing them closer to the thing that we're serving them at the end, right? We're going to have an offer. We're going to talk about that. So I love the challenge, and that's something that I'm experimenting with. And I'll show you guys right now kind of your first funnel challenge. I want to just kind of show you how you can see Russell Brunson's a great example from this. We're going to launch your, give me 5 days and I'll show you how to launch your idea into a business. But down here, he's got all of these guest speakers. So he's basically combining the two plays of the challenge and kind of like a summit. So I wanted to just pull this up because I really like this format, and this is something that I'm experimenting with right now versus the traditional summit. Okay. So do's and don'ts, and these are pretty just big things to live by. What I invite you to do, right? We're going to choose always what kind of offer we want to promote at the end. So your summit's always going to be themed around that. Your speakers are going to be themed. Your ideal audience and attendee is going to be the ideal client for that offer. The one thing I don't want you to do is to just mismatch a bunch of different people. For example, if you had a business coach next to a divorce lawyer or something, or some kind of children's sleep coach or something like that, you're just going to get a really weird mix of audience. So always intentionality when you guys are putting this together. And then the other thing is just give yourself some space to create it. I'm going to talk about the timeline in just a second and how it relates to the overall relationship building aspect of it. So 100% you can get a summit up really quickly, but I encourage you guys, because there are relationship aspects, if you're doing a big virtual summit, maybe you have 10 speakers or something like that, your reputation is, on the line. So you don't want to just slap it together and it be, like a train wreck. You guys are going to have all the systems and everything where it's not. However, you really want your speakers to be able to give you a really incredible testimonial after. And we'll talk about how to extract testimonials from your speakers, which is really great, because then I'll just say, for example, Jenna's got Ed Ray come in to speak at her summit. Ed's done $23 million in client revenue. Ed gives Jenna a testimonial that says she put together an extraordinary event. It was so organized. It was seamless. That's going to give her so much credibility in the marketplace, and just people are going to see that, and the trust factor is just going to be exponential. So quick context on the energy of partnerships too. So when we think about partnerships, the one thing I invite you guys into, it's always going to be a mutually beneficial relationship. We never want to go into a partnership where we're just trying to use somebody for their audience. And you'll really know the energy of this too, because a lot of what you're doing, right? You're sharing your brand, your reputation, you're sharing your audience. And I know I did this, early in my podcast, there was a local person. I was in a mastermind with her, and I invited her on the podcast. And one of the reasons I invited her on the podcast was because she had like 20 some thousand people in her audience. And I was like, this would be a great person to have. She's local. Maybe one day she'll want to come to the events, But I didn't do it because I actually really genuinely was like, I love her. I want her message to be in front of everybody. I want to lift her up and shout from the rooftops. And I'll let you know that I energetically felt that immediately. And I'm glad I made that mistake once, because you'll be able to feel it and they'll be able to feel it. So if you're just going out looking for JVs and brand partners where it's just like, I just want to leverage your audience, or I just want to do this, you're going to feel a little wonky. You're going to feel a little unaligned inside when you really have to get behind that 100%. So energy of partnerships, I really come from genuine, heart-led. I want to put your message in front of more people. I want to get your message out. And I want to hang out with people who I actually want to be friends with, and I actually want to spend time with. So I want to remind you guys too why you are valuable for other people to partner with, right? Somebody who's a 7-figure, 8-figure, however far along they are in your business, each and every one of you, you have a specialized skill set. Coming through this, hold on, wait, I'm pretty sure, I think I still hear my music playing on this. I apologize, wait, give me 1 second. Yeah, that's what it was. Okay. I was like, what is that? What is that sound? Okay. And we're back. And we're back. Present. Okay. A little background music. Okay, so you guys as a partner, right? I really invite you to anchor into your value as a partner, no matter where you're at, because you already have a specialized skill set. Like I said, you guys are learning how to host events, sell from events. This is the most profitable skill set in the world. Communication, selling one-to-many, and being a speaker and a thought leader, they're in sales generally. These are the most profitable skill sets in the world, but they're also the most transformational skill sets in the world. So I encourage you guys to really anchor into the value of the skill sets you're learning just by hosting these events. Outside of that, you might be in different places, right? Your audience, your email list. social followings, like I said, event spaces, you have a network, you have some kind of brand authority, and you have a platform. The platform piece is huge, and I'll give you guys an example. So I launched a podcast this year, and it's called Six Figure Speaker. You guys, if you're not already on it, get you interviewed on that podcast. So much fun. But when people see you have a podcast, nobody asks questions. They don't say, how many downloads did you get? How many people are listening? They see that you have a podcast, and it creates this perception in their mind of, oh, you have a platform and I would love to be on it. So I get people asking me to be on my podcast and are really excited to be on my podcast. I've had professional athletes, I've had, really established CEOs, but nobody knows, like, what, we only have 10 episodes. I think we hit 200 downloads recently, but nobody knows that, right? Yeah, and it's incredible. But it's the fact that you have a platform. So all I'm saying is, one of the things that I've done to build relationships is, that's why I launched the podcast, so that I can bring people in, I can interview them, I can build relationships, I can put them in front of my audience and promote them. But however, you don't really need anything else except like a Buzzsprout account, which is super inexpensive. And so I just share that with you because that might be something long-term that you want to consider if you're wanting to grow faster with other people, because you'll see, once you say, I have an event, I have a podcast, I have a stage, people go freaking bananas. So good partnerships. When you guys are selecting partners and you're out there and you're trying to figure out, who do I want to partner with? The one thing that's important is that they have something that you don't. They have a complementary skill set. They have a complementary asset. So if, for example, you don't have a large audience, but you have a stage and you have an event, maybe you want somebody with a larger audience. Maybe if you're somebody who's just starting out and you're building your credibility, you want somebody who's a little bit more established in a certain aspect of their brand, or they have some authority somewhere. So it could be, a space, it could be an audience, it could be an offer, complementary skill set. Maybe you want to partner with them. And this piece right here is, you have to be a little selfish when you start doing partnerships. And this is really, again, it comes back to your reputation and your brand. So make sure that they're adding value to you. And I invite you just to really lean into that context that you're not there to serve them. You're actually doing them a favor by building this platform. So never really get into the trap of, when you have a guest speaker, think about like crazy celebrities who are like, I only want brown M&Ms in a bowl if I'm going to speak at your event, or like some weird stuff. Okay, you guys, like, this isn't the vibe. It's very much like, find people you would want to be friends with, that you would want to have a dinner with, that you would want to hang out with. These are going to be the most fun partnerships. So I'm going to give you an example of this, and I'm going to teach you when I was a bad partner. And I was a bad partner in the end of last year. So a bad partnership, this is something to be really aware of, because building a reputation, your reputation is your most important as a brand. You're going to grow it lifelong. And nothing can ruin your reputation faster than a bad brand partner. So things and reasons that I've been said no to, or I've said no to other people who have asked me to speak, these are some of the top things that I've seen. So if somebody asked me to speak, I've gotten asked to speak at multiple summits, multiple events, different things like that. And if I go to their page and they either maybe don't have a social media presence, they don't have a lot of followers, they have a bad social media presence. For example, somebody asked me to partner on an event, and I went to their profile and it was like all pictures of their dogs. I couldn't even tell that they had a business. It just didn't look professional. So something like that, and I'll show you an example of this in just a second. When I was the perpetrator, aesthetic doesn't align. Maybe you're a premium brand and they're not, or maybe you are. I'll show you an example. In a cool girl era and somebody is more in the corporate, has a little bit more of a corporate vibe, and that's not really what they're alignment with. or their messaging. And like, guys, don't take this personal too. It's just a mirror to help you understand how can I grow and how can I be better. So maybe you have a message that is cannibalistic. It's going to deface your brand. It competes, or it's not what you agree with. So you don't want to put their message in front of more people. So I'm going to show you guys a quick example of when I was a bad partner. So this past weekend, I'm really grateful. One of my mentors, who's a venture capitalist, like $1 billion in funding, and we actually just came up with a partnership on, you guys know I'm going to teach you this in the mastermind. We have the event consulting offer. So he does $0 to $100 million. He grows businesses from 0 to 100 million. He's got a lot of experience. And, I've worked with 7, 8-figure brands, $1 billion brands. However, I haven't taken somebody to 100 million yet. So it's a really great partner to have, where I have a specialized skill set with event consulting, but he has a specialized skill set with how to build a business to exit or get funded or different things like that. So I'm going to show you when I asked him to speak at our Wealthy Woman Summit in August, he said no to me. He said no because he didn't want to associate with my brand. So I want to pull up my brand in August just so like you guys can kind of see what this looks like. And I'm using me as an example because this is vulnerable. So I'm going to go down to around this area of the brand, and what I call like, I didn't realize it at first, but when Jeremy, he shared this with me, he used himself as an example. So this is why I'm using myself as an example, because I want to model it for you. So he pulled up a picture of himself, and he had sunglasses on in like all of his pictures. And he's like, I had a cool guy era too, where, long story short, he's doing a bunch of stuff with big global founders, and this type of aesthetic wasn't the right thing for him to be associated with, and that's okay. And I really used it as a mirror. I didn't get offended. He told me why. He showed me an example, and he used himself similar like I'm doing now. And it really got my gears turning, because I said, well, I want to partner with huge investors. I want to partner with people who are making a lot more money. I want to have clients that are making a lot more money. So it was a mirror for me to really look at that and say, well, what is it about my brand? It was mostly like this kind of like sunglasses, like cool girl thing that was going on. I said, well, how can I still be me? I'm not going to cover up my tattoos. I'm not going to try to be somebody I'm not, but really just showing that more authenticity of me. So that was kind of like the vibe here. I had a lot of this sunglasses was kind of like a thing in my brand. So, now when we look at the brand, I've really taken a look and said, well, if I want to have clients, I want to help somebody have $1 million day. So I want to work with people who are very established. What does that look like? So, it's still me, right? I'm still, there's even this right here. This is me. All my tattoos are out, but I just asked myself, how can I just be more of me? I'm still doing the sparkles. I'm still doing the tattoos. I haven't changed who I am. I just took off the sunglasses, and I'm not trying to act cool or like, so can you guys like see just that little nuance in the brand of like something that might not have appeared to me where I was at, but so I'll just show you. And now, so Jeremy's created, it's called the Super Founder Global Network. And basically it's all of the top people from all of these brands. So this weekend, was a big milestone in the reflection of who I've become. So I invite you guys into this context of who do you want to partner with, like long term, and then who do you have to become the fullest expression of you that's not inauthentic, but that's a match for that. So now I've gotten invited to this mastermind for free, where I get to plug into 300 billion worth of founders that I can close deals, partner with, network with, and now I can associate with Jeremy as the founder, and I can borrow his credibility as I come in here. So this is just an example, and I share this with you guys. Because, like, you know, Red Bull, Visa, Coca-Cola, he just got the marketing head from Dollar Shave Club, like all of these really extraordinary, well-known companies. And your perception of your brand is going to determine when other people look at you like that. Like Jeremy is going to look at my brand and immediately say, I do or I don't want to speak with you. I do or I don't want to JV with you. So there's just something to be aware of long term, and ask yourself, how can I continue to be more of me, but also be in alignment with the partnerships that I want to create? So something to just consider. And as you're doing that, I invite you guys to dream big. This is something that I do. Russell Brunson calls it the Dream 100. I call it 100 industry icons. And it's making a list of the people who you really want to partner with long term, knowing that you're going to be building out that sphere of influence. You're going to get closer and closer to them. So I have this list. And then what I do is I will start to build relationships. I'll interview them. I'll get them on the podcast. You know, I just had Kevin Daly, Harlem Globetrotter, on the podcast. I want him to speak at one of our events. I want to partner with him on a JV. So, you know, I actually really love his message. I promoted his book. Like, I love him. He's a cool guy. He's my friend. So it's not just like for the external. It's like, I actually love your message. You're teaching motivational speaking to athletes. It's different. I want to get your message out. So create this list, build these relationships long-term. And I invite you to start that list if you don't already. And we have a training on that specifically in the mastermind too. All right, so we got just one more quick slide. And this is the overall timeline of the summit, or a big event where you're doing a lot of guest speakers. Something like this, I typically do quarterly. I do quarterly because I can go through the process in the background of building the relationships and really nurturing and figuring out, how do I want to grow my sphere of influence, so that the next time I have an event, what I love to do with our events, and you guys have seen this, I put you guys on the stage. So my goal with my summit, it's not just to build my credibility and authority, but it's to help you build yours. So when I can get Rox or, you know, Jenna on stage with Kevin Daly, Harlem Globetrotter, or some 7 or 8 figure CEO, when your face is next to them, it's not just for me, but I want to accelerate your authority. So this kind of is a general timeline of how I'll go through it. Building relationships always in the background. Speaker reach outs, we'll talk about that. Booking the speakers, coordinating them, coordinating the schedule, sending the speaker packages, and then really getting everybody on this same timeline for the fill piece of this. So that's really the only difference when you're talking about deciding and filling the event. It's the speaker coordination and the speaker just getting everybody on the same page, sending the packages, applications, different things like that. When you have the right people in the room, everybody's going to help you fill it, and you're all going to be filling it at the same time, and people are going to be tagging and sharing, and it's like a huge party on the internet, and everybody sees your stuff and knows your name, and it's so cool. Host the summit, and then post summit. What I typically do, and I'll give you guys scripts for this, is I ask all my speakers for testimonials. So then you can get testimonials from your attendees, but you can get testimonials from your speakers of what it's like to work with you. So then you've got this really beautiful repository of people that are talking about, oh, she had SOPs and she had marketing swipes and she had this, and it was so organized. So then you can use that for offers you're selling. You can use that for guest speakers in the future. You know, you can put that on an application page for a mastermind or something high ticket you're selling. So, you know, the guest speaker piece of it, it just goes so far beyond just filling the room, but even afterwards, continuing to build trust with your audience.